The Speaker has just recently ruled that all House business, all government business must be put aside while members of Parliament consider Liberal corruption.
Now what do you do as the Liberals? I think they're in a checkmate position here.
We have shocking news tonight from Parliament as Greg Fergus has suspended all government business in Parliament until it turns over all SDTC documents to the RCMP.
Let's take a look.
After 9 years, Justin Trudeau has shown that he's not worth the cost or the corruption. The Speaker has just recently ruled that all House business, all government business must be put aside while members of Parliament consider Liberal corruption. First, we had the case of the Green Slush Fund, the SDTC fund, where the Auditor General found over $330 million funneled to Liberal insiders' own businesses. She found massive conflicts of interest. Basically, these Liberal appointed board members who made the decision as to which companies got money, taxpayers' money, from this fund, were funneling that money to their own businesses or to the businesses of their close friends. So the Auditor General has blown the whistle on that, yet the government refuses to hand over the documents to the RCMP. The House of Commons passed a production order demanding that all documents, all information that the Auditor General uncovered, plus any documents that might exist in any government department related to this scandal, be handed over to the RCMP. The government is refusing, and as a result, the House will be seized with this corruption matter until they hand over the documents. And then we have the case of the other Randy, where a senior Trudeau minister is alleged to have been sitting around the cabinet table while also involved in his own business's affairs. His business partner was summoned before a committee and refused to disclose all the information, refused to name who the other Randy is, refused to hand over all the documents and answer the questions that were put to him. And as a result, the House is seized with that motion as well. So what we're saying today is that the government will not be able to, the House will be staying on these corruption matters until the Liberals hand over all the documents to the RCMP.
No, you're not dreaming. Greg Fergus actually did something nonpartisan. Now, you may be wondering, how does even Greg Fergus have the ability to do this? Well, this is actually contained within the standing orders of Parliament. And we were able to actually finally look that up, because when we were at Parliament, we made a purchase.
We bought a copy of the Green Book. This is the same Green Book that you often hear them refer to in Parliament, and it's all of the orders and procedures of the House of Commons. So the ones that refer to this case are Standing Order number 10, Order and Decorum, no appeal. The Speaker shall preserve order and decorum and shall decide questions of order. In deciding a point of order or practice, the Speaker shall state the standing order or other authority applicable to the case. No debate shall be permitted on any such decision, and no such decision shall be subject to an appeal to the House.
So, sounds like a lot of gobbledygook, but basically what that means is the Speaker may actually take action in order to preserve quote-unquote decorum of the House. And since the government is not following the direction of the House, the Speaker has authority to actually suspend government orders until they comply with the order of the House.
Well, it's kind of like how last week when Pierre wasn't apologizing for his little speech in question period, the Speaker was permitted to take away 3 questions. That was Pierre's punishment, right? So because the government is refusing to turn over the SDTC documents, the Speaker is permitted to suspend all of their business until they comply.
So you may be saying, oh, well, did Greg Fergus finally do something, right? And that's kind of a loaded answer. So yes, he did something right. He did something proper. Did he do it right because it was right? Well, that's now up for debate, because here's the thing. So the government, being liberal, is now in a position where it's checkmated. It is absolutely checkmated, because all of the three opposition parties lined up to order the House to order the government to turn over these documents. The problem that this originally arose from is that the government didn't want to turn over all these documents, so they essentially took some black marker and redacted a whole bunch of them. And it's not like these documents are going to the parliamentarians, they're going to the RCMP. So the opposition said, no, this isn't right, and we call this a question of privilege, because what that means is that the government is preventing the parliamentarians from exercising their parliamentary right, their privilege in order to be there. So the government not complying with the House is violating parliamentary privilege, and the Speaker was forced to agree with that.
Well, and it's violating parliamentary privilege for all the opposition MPs.
Correct. So it wasn't just one, it was all of them. Now, then the question comes, okay, so then why did the Speaker do this? Well, here's the thing. The SDTC scandal has blown up so much that if the Speaker of the House, being a liberal, being Mr. Partisan, had actually sided with the government on this, what would have inevitably happened is you would have then seen a motion from one or all of the opposition parties to actually put forward a motion of non-confidence in the Speaker, calling him to resign or forcing him to resign.
Right. And if you have the Conservatives, the NDP, and the Bloc all on board, which I imagine you would, because this is very serious that the government is withholding these documents. So if Fergus had supported the government in withholding those documents, I imagine all three opposition parties would call for his removal.
And they would have been able to get it too.
Right.
So then they would have elected a new Speaker, and you can bet your bottom dollar that it would not be a Liberal Speaker. And then you would have had the opposition parties effectively running the henhouse at that point. So he had to agree with them, otherwise he would have lost his job. So now the Liberals are in a predicament, because what does this mean? Well, Bill C-63, no more debate until they produce the documents. What about the other bills on the floor in terms of the election, reform and all of that, and all of the other bills and the block bills that haven't yet made it to the Senate? What about them? Well, they don't get debated either, because they're government bills.
Does this affect committee as well?
The committees where these are typically going to be discussed, that's going to be a problem. But what the Speaker may do is refuse to accept the reports from committee.
Oh.
So, because that would advance the government agenda. So everything has to come back to the House in order to advance, recall. Because when it leaves the House, goes to committee, then they discuss it, and then they prepare a report, and then that goes back to the House. But if the Speaker says, no, I'm not accepting the report, then the bill still can't advance.
Right. And this is a huge problem, because this is the Liberals' last term in government, at least until we have an election. But they are not able to put forward any of their business right now. So they're losing days. They've already got a limited number of days as it is, because it's going to be their last term, because we all know the Conservatives are going to win a majority. So the fact that Fergus has put the brakes on all government business, it's really, really hurting the Liberals right now.
Yeah, every day counts. Every day. And the fact that this came at the worst possible time, because the Bloc has their little ultimatum going on, well, now what do you do as the Liberals? I think they're in a checkmate position here. So the question is, do they turn over all of these documents unredacted now? Because now they know the number of documents, because they've shot out all these documents, and they're all redacted, so they know what should be there. So are you going to turn over all those documents to the RCMP and then possibly lead to some criminal charges against maybe some ministers, maybe some of the Liberal friendlies? Who knows? Or are they going to roll the dice and have the government fall.
Or another option is that they could prorogue Parliament.
Well, that's another action that is being talked about even more now. So what they could do, and it's being discussed, do they prorogue Parliament? Does Trudeau step down and they add, put another leader in place?
But even that aside, all of their businesses stopped anyways. So if they prorogue Parliament, the difference between what's going on right now and proroguing Parliament would be that if they prorogue Parliament, all the bills on the floor are not only stopped, they're completely dead.
Including this order for them to produce these documents.
Right.
By the way.
Right. So if they do that, everything's absolutely dead. Anything in the Senate is also dead in the water. They would have to bring it back from the very beginning unless they get unanimous consent in the House to bring back, this bill and that bill, and they have to do it bill by bill by bill. However, that almost never happens. Like, they usually just start at the very beginning after prorogation. So it is an option. It is a very extreme option. It would be a good option, right? If you're the Liberals and are thinking about maybe getting another leader instead, because again, right now, as it stands, you can't do anything. So if you prorogue Parliament, you're still going to not be able to do anything, but maybe you can get a new leader installed.
Well, and this is where Jagmeet Singh would have really screwed the pooch, because if they prorogue Parliament, that precious pharmacare bill that they have and they've fought all this time, it goes into the trash. So, away it goes. And then, but what that does is that all but guarantees that when Parliament comes back, the NDP, the Bloc, and the Conservatives are going to be voting non-confidence, because now the Bloc and the NDP, they have no legislation in their interest to actually pass. It's all gone. So they have no choice but to do that. So this is essentially nuking the site from orbit. That's what this is. So this is the choice that the Liberals have. They either hand over the documents, or they don't, or they prorogue. That's basically what you got. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. And they better decide quick, because the business that is allowed to continue is private member bills and opposition bills and opposition motions. And what's going to be happening now, and it's already scheduled, we looked ahead, debate all tomorrow is showing all the dirty laundry of the SDTC scandal to the House of Commons, not just committee. So it's all going to be aired for everyone to see. So the question for Trudeau is, they're playing chicken with you. How far do you want to go?